springtime right now, and springtime flowers are just one of my favorite things in the whole world. We have such good wild flowers, not wildfires. Fires are bad, flowers are good. In the Texas area, in the Austin area especially, and I've really been falling in love with just driving around and looking at all the pretty flowers, which made me think about one of our old favorite project designs, which is called the Ramblin' Roses piece. When we designed this, my mom and I designed this one together, I basically gave her an assignment that I wanted her to design something with lots of flowers on it because it's just so popular, you know, we all love flowers. So this is what she came up with, was our Ramblin' Roses bracelet, and this is the original colorway that we did, and then we loved it so much that we then did what I call the blurples colorway, the blue purples. My bedroom decor is actually based on this color palette because I love these colors in this piece so much. So this is not a difficult project to do. It's got a lot of different techniques in it. And I think probably the most intimidating piece about making this bracelet is simply that we can't tell you on the third bead from the left, you're attaching a flower, and the fifth bead from the right, you're attaching a flower here. You have to kind of just sew them on creatively in a manner that it looks pleasing to you. Now, having said that, in the instructions, we give you a close-up photo of what this looks like. So if you want to, try to make yours look approximately like this, you have that option, obviously. But I think that's kind of intimidating for people sometimes, is to realize that they have to kind of take charge about where things are going to sit. But let me step you through all of the little pieces of making this particular bracelet. We start out by creating a netted back. Then we will add the vine. So we actually create this vine off of that netted base, and so we then attach the vine. Then we create all these little flowers separately, and then stitch those flowers on along the vine on your bracelet. And then the last step is, for the clasp here, what we've done is we've actually used snaps, because what we wanted to do is have your entire wrist encircled by the flowers. So when it's clasped, you can't even tell where the clasp is. It's just beautiful flowers everywhere. So I will also show you how to sew on those snaps. So let's get started. And the first thing that we're going to do is work on that base. So it's a netted base. And here I've already attached a little stopper bead. I just had a 4mm crystal here, so I'm going to use that. And I picked up 22 of my size 11 seed beads. And what we're going to do is, now I'm going to hold this so that the tail is up and to the left. So as a righty, that's how I would do it. If I were a lefty, it would be up and to the left. I'm sorry, and up and to the right. Ugh. Right, left, you know what I mean. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass back through the 6th bead from my needle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's number 5. Let's get him separated. So here's number 6. So I'm going to pass back through that 6th bead, going back up. And this just creates our little turnaround down on the bottom. Now I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads, and I'm going to skip 3 along here and then pass through the 4th. So you'll have 3 beads sitting by 3 beads. So they're going to be right neighbors right here. And we're going to continue to do that step all the way up to the top. So 3 beads, skipping 3, go through the 4th. Okay, pick up 3. Skip 3, 1, 2, 3, go through the 4th, and then pick up 3, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, go through the 4th. The reason I counted that out to make sure was because if you don't come out that last seed bead, that means that you miscounted somewhere along the way. So you want to make sure that you're coming out of the very last seed bead up at the top there. So here's the turnaround. This is the part where it's going to now start getting repetitive. I always like to flip my work, so I'm always working up. So now I'm going to flip this, so here I am going up again. On your turns, you're going to pick up 5 seed beads instead of 3. So there's 3, 4, 5. And you're going to pass through the middle bead of that set of 3 that's sitting right above there. So it's that middle one. Then, so that was just on the turn. So now on the all the way back to the other side, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the 3 and pass through the middle bead of the previous set of 3 up there, the very next one that shows. So pick up 3, pass through the middle, pick up 3, pass through the middle, pick up 3, and then here's where it can be confusing, because where's the middle, right? Because you've got this turnaround thing. So what we're going to look at is you're going to go, if there were 3, it would be 1, 2, 3. So it would be the first one past the join bead here. So 1, 2, 3. So we're going to go through that second bead right there, okay? So don't let that confuse you. It's just going to be the second one past that join bead where the 2 sides come together. Now I'm going to flip it. Remember, I'm now turning a corner, so I'm changing direction. That means that I need to pick up 5 beads here instead of my 3. So there's my 5. And then here is 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to pass through the middle bead of that set of 3. So this is what you're going to keep doing over and over again until you get the length that you desire. And because we're putting snaps on this particular bracelet, what you want is this bracelet to actually overlap your wrist by about 1/2 inch, maybe even 3/4 inch. You want to give yourself enough room to get that snap put in there. So this is one of those rare times when I don't give you like a exact measurement of how much additional your clasp is going to add. It's going to be about, you want it to overlap your wrist. So here you're going to keep going. What it's going to end up looking like is like this. And this is a good example. This one, actually, I have not ever sewed the snap on this one. So but this one happens to fit me because I've got those fluffy wrists, Actually, it doesn't even fit me very well anymore. So let's see here. It will. So but see, look how this base overlaps by about 1/2 inch. In a perfect world, for me, this could overlap maybe just a little bit more, like more like 3/4 inch, so that this could come in just a little bit farther on this. So that's kind of what you're looking for, is enough for it to overlap so that you can get that snap sewn on there nice and securely. So you go ahead and work on your netted base. When we come back, I'll show you how we're going to attach the vine. Okay, so we've got the base done. Now we're going to work on the vine. And the vine is made a little bit uniquely, let's say. You're actually going to have your thread coming out of the base, and you're going to pick up enough beads basically for you to kind of wind that strand up and down along the entire length of your bracelet. So we create the long length first, and then we come back, and as we work our way back to the start, that's where we're adding the leaves. So I'm going to make just a little mini segment of it, but make sure that when you pick your initial seed beads up, that you're picking up enough to wind it back and forth along this bracelet. You can see that we don't just keep it straight down the middle. You want to kind of give it some movement and some interesting spacing there. And we do have a picture in the written instructions that shows you the bracelet with just the vine on it to kind of just give you an idea of what it should look like. So when we make this, oops, that thread is not attached to anything. How about we take the thread that's attached in? I did indent this by about 1/2 inch. So I've got my thread just coming out randomly out of a spot here, 1/2 inch in. The reason I want to leave space here is because this is where the snaps are going to be. So if the snaps are on top, then I need it to be, I need to leave space for the snaps there. If they're going to be on the bottom, we like to actually put a rose over each one of those snaps, even if they're on the bottom edge. And so you want to leave enough room for that rose to sit there. So that's why we indent it. So I'm going to pick up just a random number of seed beads here from my little tiny Barbie bracelet. Absolutely love these seed beads. They are green lined, but they have an amber for the outside part of it, so they really have this really cool luster to them. They kind of glow. Okay, so we're going to say that's enough for me to kind of wind this a little bit. Oh, how about a couple more? So once you get the number that you like, what you're going to do is we're going to start working our way back down this strand and creating leaves as we go. So just to turn this around, you're going to skip one on the base, and you're going to skip one and pass right back through the next bead here, and that's just going to kind of create a little turnaround for us to do that. And you might want to add a leaf right there. Maybe you want to go in a couple of beads before you start adding a leaf. This is one of those things, it's up to you. So I just went one more. So I'm ready to add my first leaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 5 seed beads. 5. And I am going to skip 5 on the base, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to pass through the next 3. There we go. So there we go. There's our first leaf. And then since I went down 3, how about let's add another leaf right here. This time, in addition to these 5 that I'm going to have to pick up, I'm going to pick up a couple of beads for a stem here too. So this time I'm going to pick up 10 seed beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Like I did on this tip here, I'm going to have to turn around and to go back the other direction. So I'm going to skip 1 and pass through that second bead. So that's going to be our little tip right there. And then I'm going to pick up 5 seed beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'll be for the other half of our leaf here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll pass through those 3 in the base of that stem. And there we go. Now we've got a second stem there. And now we can go back into that initial piece here and pass through however many beads you want to in that base. And you will keep adding pieces off of this in whatever way it looks pretty to you. And you're going to work your way so that you come all the way back down to the end here. And what's going to happen is after you've gotten all those leaves added, I'm going to get my thread kind of down there. I'm not going to go all the way to that very last bead in this piece, but maybe 4 or 5 beads away from it. There we go. Because after that, now we're going to attach this whole vine to the base itself. Because right now the only place it's attached is that one bead. So what we're going to do to tack this down is super simple. You're just going to, wherever your thread is coming out, you're going to kind of figure out where your placement's going to be, and you're going to hook around the thread in the base of the bracelet. So you don't even have to go through a bead if you don't want to. You could go through a bead, but you don't have to. You can actually just hook the thread that's in between the beads. Now come back up to your vine, go another quarter, half inch or so, kind of figure out where you want that to sit, and then just hook under the threads wherever that's sitting, like so, and then back through that main stem. And you're just going to keep tacking it down all the way along until you get the placement that you want. So you get to be an artist, which I think is actually kind of the cool part. You get to kind of decide exactly what your piece looks like. So go ahead and take care of that part. When we come back, I'll show you how to make those little adorable flowers. Okay, so now we get to make flowers. Let's get to the meat of this. This is a very easy technique to do, and let me tell you this, because we're going to use all one color. Well, at least we did in our flowers. We used a single color for each flower. Actually, there's no reason why you couldn't mix the colors so that it might be a little easier for you to see each layer as we add the layers in. But the reason I want to mention it is simply because if you make a mistake, nobody's gonna notice, okay? So I don't want you to freak out about this. If you have trouble seeing where exactly you need to be going, fake it. You know, nature's not perfect, and these are all just little petals that are all coming up. And so unless somebody is, you know, sitting there with a magnifying glass 2 inches from their nose looking at it, they're never gonna notice. So I don't want you to stress about the flowers. But I will show you step by step how this all goes along. So I just attached a stopper bead here to keep myself honest for the first round. And I am going to start out with a ring of 10 seed beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. And we can bring them down to that stopper bead. You're going to pass through all those beads again from the tail end back up. And you'll have to do multiple passes to get through them all. And then you want to go at least 1 or 2 beads past your tail when you do that, because that's what actually turns it into a circle. Okay, so now we're ready for our first round of petals. And what we're going to do here is pick up 3 seed beads. We're going to skip 1 on this initial ring, and then we're going to pass through the next one. So it's going to create these little waves of beads here. 1, 2, 3, skip 1, pass through the next one. Let me get this, there's an odd bead in there. 1, 2, 3, skip 1, pass through the next one. 1, 2, 3, skip 1, pass through the next one, and then 1, 2, 3. When you add this last one, you're skipping 1, passing through the next one. That will be the same bead that you started adding those little these little waves of petals when you do that. So you will end up with 5 petals along here. So for the next round, what we're going to do is we're going to pass through the first 2 beads of that first wave that's straight ahead, so that you're coming out the middle of those 3 seed beads. And this time what we're going to do is, you know what, we're going to make one that has multiple colors in it, because why not? Let's take a look at what it looks like. Plus, I think at least in the video, it'll help you see what's going on. So for our next round, let's use these blue beads. So I did the step up so that I'm coming out the middle bead of that first petal. Now I'm going to pick up 5 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm passing through the middle bead of the next piece over. So this is just making a petal that's farther out. More sticky outy. Pass through that middle bead of the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pass through the middle bead of the next one over. At this point, I can actually get rid of that stopper bead because we don't need him anymore, and he's kind of getting in my way. So I'm gonna Get that guy out of there. Normally I would just pull it, but because it's a crystal, I don't want to cut that thread accidentally. There we go. So we'll undo. Okay, because we've got 2 more petal rounds to add here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through that tip. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're going to go back through that tip right there. So it's the same one that your first petal started out. So there is now 2 rounds of our petals. So then we're going to go back down to the center ring of 10 again. So we're going to pass down a single bead here. And I'm actually looking at the instructions just to make sure that I'm telling you the right stuff here. So let's see here, to the 3rd bead of the group of 3. Okay, yes, so we're gonna needle down 1 bead. And let me show you what I'm looking at here. Here was our initial ring. So these 3 beads were one of those first sets of 3s that we added. So we were attaching to the middle of that set of 3. You want to be coming out the 3rd of that set of 3. Okay, so that's why you only have to pass down 1 bead to be right in the right spot. Now let's introduce a whole nother color here, because this is fun making a multicolor one. Why didn't I do this a long time ago? Here, we'll use this color next. Okay, so I'm going to pick up 3. 1, 2, and 3. And this time you're going to pass through the first bead of the next set of 3 over. So we're coming out the 3rd one from this set, and we're going in the first one over here on this next set. So you can see where this can be a little confusing when it's all one color, but it's not that bad. And then you're going to pass through the next 2 beads of that set of 3 so that you're coming out that 3rd one. So here we go, 1, 2, 3. Going in the first set of the next set of 3 here. And I'm also going to go, because I happen to be on the right angle, to pass up through that middle one. Now I need to come down the 3rd one. There we go. And you can see how these petals are kind of sitting up, which is exactly what we want them to do. Picking up 3, passing through that whole set of 3, like so. Picking up 3, passing through the whole set of 3 from the previous. There's 2 of the beads. There's the 3rd one I'm passing through. And then this will be our last set on this round. So picking up 3 and passing through the first one on that next set of 3. So there we go. So now we're starting to get that 3-dimensionality on our flower. Then one last row. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pass through beads so that you get down to that initial ring of 10. And now you can really kind of see that initial ring of 10 because it's right here in the center, since we've got beads attached to everything else. So we're going to just work our way through beads till we get down there. So passing through the other 2 beads of the set of 3 that you were working on, and then down into the initial row of 10. And so we've got one last set that we're going to add right in on that initial row of 10. So I think I'm going to go back to these bright blue ones here. So you're going to pick up 3 beads. You're going to skip one in the base, and you're going to pass through the next bead. And you actually have an option here of, you can either match these petals up so that they are all in a row, or you could offset them. So that is just a design choice on your part. Interestingly enough, as I'm adding this same color blue, I'm noticing that I'm basically eliminating any of that lavender that I had used for that initial round. You can't really see it at all anymore. So I'm coming out of this bead, I'm going to skip one, I'm going to pass through the next one. The other thing here to notice is that I'm using dark colored fire line, and you're actually being able to see a little bit of the fire line, the dark fire line in this particular piece. This is one of those rare times when I might actually suggest you use a white fire line, the crystal. I don't use it very often, but when I'm using something where where I feel like I'm seeing too much of the dark thread, then I will switch over to the crystal. And this is our last one where we're skipping one, passing through the next bead, which is almost hidden here because you've got beads attached on top of it. So this is probably the most difficult stitch right here, is to get into that bead down there. And here's the thing, you don't even have to necessarily, like I'm having trouble getting an angle on it. You know what I can do instead? I can just pass through the first bead of that first round of 3 that I added. It's no big deal. So there we go. Now what we're missing is the crystal in the center. So go ahead, we're going to attach the crystal when we attach the flower to the base. So go ahead and make all of your different flowers. You've got all sorts of different colors. You can play with the color combinations. You can make them each, the same color if you want to, which is what we did here. But get your little artistic feelings going and create all your little flowers for your flower garden. When you come back, we'll show you how to attach it to the base and how you'll attach that crystal inside there too. So now we're ready to do all the tacking down of all the flowers. Hopefully you've got a whole bunch made. You can either tack them as you go along or do them all at once and kind of lay it out and have a plan that way. I suggest that you periodically kind of stop and place them on your base with the vine there, because that will help you kind of figure out the overall vision. Here is a really good tip for doing that. Let me kind of bring you in closer to show you what I mean. So here's my little Barbie bracelet that I'm making, and let's say I decide that this is the perfect placement, but I'm never going to remember. If I've got all of these flowers here and I kind of laid them out, I'm never going to remember what color goes where and exactly what the placement is, right? So if you just lay them out, take your cell phone, take a picture of it, and then you have a perfect thing to refer back to when you're placing them as you go along. The cell phone is a really handy-dandy temporary snapshot kind of thing to do when you're trying to do something like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and attach this little guy here. It does not matter whether you use a thread that's attached to your base to attach your rose, or if you have a thread that's attached to the rose to attach to the base. It doesn't really matter. We're going to go back and forth between the two. So wherever you have, thread that's ready to go, you can use it. In this case, what I did is I ended off the thread for my rose, and I'm going to use the thread that's already attached to the base to tack it on there. So remember when we just hooked threads when we were attaching the vine? You can do a little bit of that with your flower. You're going to want to tack this in about 4 or 5 spots around here so that it's nice and sturdy, because you don't want this to kind of catch an edge and accidentally get ripped off. So you want these flowers to be on here nice and sturdy. But here's what I found is the best way for me to go about this. I'm going to take this thread, I'm going to pop it right through the center of this flower, because that's right where I want this flower to be. And then I'm going to just kind of lay my thread wherever it makes sense, wherever it's kind of hidden on the inside here, and then I'm going to pass through a couple of beads in the flower. There we go. Okay, and then right there, I'm going to stab right through the flower and through the base so that it's coming out the back end here. And now I'm going to pass through a couple of beads on the base. And so by flipping this over and going to the back side to make these stitches on the base, on the netted base here, it makes your life much easier because you're not trying to avoid all of these petals and leaves and everything. It just makes it so much easier to make your stitch. Then you can stab straight on up again through. Now I'm coming through the flower up here. Doesn't really matter where that came out as long as it's hitting the flower. And now I just want to make sure that I'm going into a bead or two that is right where my thread is coming out, because I don't want any thread to be showing as I'm doing this. So I'm going to stitch through a couple of beads here. Same thing, I can now stab straight through the base, like so. You can kind of see the outline of where the flower is. So on the base, when I'm moving through a couple of beads, I want to kind of move back towards where I need to do some more flower attachment. There we go. So you'll do this, like I said, 4 to 5 times. Now I'm going to stab straight through again. And what I'm going to do right this second is I'm going to poke it right up through the center hole, because after you've gotten all that attachment done, then we want to go ahead and add the crystal in the center. And the crystal in the center is going to be just as easy as you think it is. You have your thread coming out that center. You bring the crystal in. Now we don't want if possible, we don't want the crystal to sit with its hole up. We want this crystal to sit sideways. So here is the best way to make that happen. I picked up the crystal. I'm going to poke back down straight through the center here to the other side. See how it kind of wants to sit up? I'm just going to take my needle, put it through that hole of the crystal, kind of sit it sideways, put my finger over it, and now I can tighten down underneath. And now that crystal is sitting sideways in the center of your flower. And so you'll do one more round of weaving through here, coming back up. You can go back through that crystal a second time if you like, because you do have thread coming on either side of that crystal. And then you'll have one flower completely attached, and look how pretty that looks. Then you can just, if you still have more thread attached here, you can move to the next location that you want your next flower. In this case, I happen to have a big long thread attached to this flower. So since this one's getting short, what I might do is end off this thread, and then when I go to attach the next flower, I can use the thread that's attached to the flower to attach it in, because you can see how it's just super easy to use a thread from either location. So that's how you're going to create your fabulous garden that is going to be eternally blooming. Work on that. When we come back, there's one last step, and that is sewing those snaps on. So I've got a couple of tips for you on that, and you don't want to miss it, because you don't want to sew those snaps in wrong the way I have done more times than I care to admit. I'll see you in a second. I am embarrassed to admit that this lovely Blurples sample here, we have had made for about 3 years, maybe even 4 years, and to this day it has never had the snap actually sewn on it, because I hate sewing snaps onto bracelets. I'm just going to flat out admit it, that I hate it. It's a little persnickety, but the flip side is that I love the way a snap works in a bracelet. So it's totally worth it. We just haven't taken the time to go back to this bracelet and finish it off. So guess which bracelet I'm going to demo on. I'm going to go ahead and get this poor little snap sewn onto this guy. So here's what you have to do when you're working on the snaps. The biggest thing is you need to make sure that you don't sew one side on upside down. Seriously, I have done this so many times. I mean, there have been times when I've done it, cut it off, redone it, and realized I redid it wrong again. I am not kidding. I mean, you want to talk about bad words coming out of my mouth? Yeah, that was not a good day. Actually, I think I've done that twice. So these are the rules that I've come up for myself when I'm sewing a snap-on so that I don't screw it up. Number 1. Connect your snap. So you've got the 2 pieces and parts, and what always confuses me is that the one side always looks like it should be with the sticky outy part up, and instead it actually should be with the indented part up, because that's the part that the other part snaps into. So I always connect them when I am mentally placing them, okay, so that I can make sure that I know what I'm doing here. And the other thing that I'm looking at here is I want to look at where the spacing is. So I'm going to kind of overlap these two pieces. So I've already done this where I kind of figured out where I want where I want the snaps to be. We purposely put a flower on either end of this tip here so that that will cover where the snap is. So I know that this one end is going to be right on the tip here. And then I didn't want there to be too much of a gap here between flowers. So that means that I need to kind of bring this in quite a bit here. So I have identified this location right here as where I want this snap to go. So when I snap it in, it's going to look right like that, and it's going to look seamless. So that's what I've done there. Now here's the other thing that I need to know is one piece is going to sit flat here, one piece is going to go there. So I just kind of lay it out so that I know, okay, this piece is going to be over here, upside down. Here's the flat piece that's going to go right there, okay? And I'm going to do this again, put the two pieces together when I go to attach it on the other side, because I'm just that terrified at this point of screwing it up again. Okay, so when you go to attach a snap, you're just tacking it on. And the snap has these 4 little spots here where there's holes along the base. And so you're just going to go bring your thread through the hole and up around the edge and then back into the bracelet base and go through a couple of beads. And then do the same thing. So you want to have, with a snap, you know, I like to really overdo it with attaching on in these 4 locations. Number one is because this is a metal piece here and there could be a sharp edge. If you've got many passes of threads across here, you're much less likely to have that metal edge cut your thread. Number two is because when you do a snap clasp, you do tend to pull on it. So as long as you attach it really securely, you will never have a problem with just pulling it on it and to unclasp it. So this particular bracelet piece right here is probably a good 5 to 6 years old, and this snap has never come undone, because you can see where there's a whole cluster of threads in each one of those locations attaching that down. So just be really sure that you've got it nice and secure. When you use a snap also, you don't have to pull. What's going to happen is some people are going to pull. They're going to want to try on your bracelet. They're going to give you a heart attack because they're just going to want to rip it. But what you can do is kind of take your fingernail and pop that snap. And that way you've got a finger on one side of the snap, a finger on the other side of the snap, and you'll pop it open, and that will have the least amount of stress on that snap. But like I said, this snap has lasted an incredible long period of time, and it does not show even any signs at all of loosening up, okay? So don't be afraid to use the snaps. So attaching this is going to be very similar to the way that we attached the flowers, and that just means a little bit of tediousness. So it's going to be coming up. I've just come through one of the holes on the snap, and so I'm going to kind of just lay it in that location. I'm going to come right back. There is a bead right down here that I can go through over and over again. So this happens to be a crossover bead. Let's see, is this where I want? You know, I think I actually want to shift this up a little bit farther away from the center. So before I even start attaching this, I'm going to shift it. So that's something else to take a look at, that you're giving yourself enough room for both snaps. If you only put a single snap on this bracelet, what would happen is these ends could kind of start, they're just going to kind of, what am I trying to say, wing up on you a little bit. So that's why we like to do the 2 snaps, to make it nice and secure. So I'm just going to make this come up one segment here, like so. I liked that crossover bead placement of where I was, so I'm going to just move up to that crossover bead that was right on top there. Okay, so here I go, like so. And then I'm going to pass through that crossover bead again, bring my thread through that hole, back through that crossover bead again. I would do, my rule of thumb is I want to do this a good 5 or 6 times, enough times that it starts getting hard to get my thread back through the bead if possible. And don't worry too much about whether your thread is showing here, because remember that when this bracelet is clasped, you're not going to see it because it's got an overlap. So that's one of the other saving graces of this, is that you can not worry about it too much. So this is all we're going to do is, we'll call this little corner done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move through the beads to kind of get over to where the next spot is. So here's where the next hole is. There's a bead right here, so I can come right around this little diamond and come through this bead, and then I can attach this here. So you're just kind of looking for the bead that's closest to each one of these holes and tacking it down, and you'll just work your way around all 4 of those and then end off your thread. I do suggest that you use a brand new thread for each one of these snaps because, again, if something's going to break, it's likely to be your snap, your clasp, and so then that's the only thing that's broken. So you'll go ahead and tack all that down. You'll tack all of the second one down, and then your the other half of your clasp will be of your snap will be on either side right here. You want to make sure that it's all lining up nicely before you finish tacking everything down, and then you're ready to go. One of the other suggestions that I have for you, and this is actually the way it's written in the instructions, is that you attach your snap before you attach the roses here on the end, because those beads will start getting full of thread in there. And so trying this by attaching the roses on top first, it's going to be just a little harder to kind of get your angle into those beads with your needle and thread. So if you attach your snap first and then attach the roses on top, it's a little bit easier. But you can play with it either way. Obviously, either way will work. It just is a matter of how long it might take you. Make sure you do it where you've got a lot of good lighting and patience. And just please don't do what I do and put it on wrong, because then you're very sad and you cry and you say bad words. And then you go on Facebook and tell everybody and everybody laughs at you. It's just really bad. So enjoy your wristful of flowers. We have kits available for this on my website at jillwisemandesigns.com. Also, the full written instructions with all of the little details are also available at jillwisemandesigns.com. You can come find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. I'm everywhere. Pinterest. I want to see what you guys are doing too. Thank you.